The most salient lesson of our work is actually that we can solve this problem. Maybe it sounds a little trite, but I mean, when I came to this, and I think I would speak for, thousands of people who have joined Teach for America, who've come to this feeling like the world should be a different way. It isn't fair that we have 13 million kids in our country who are growing up below the poverty line, who, by the time they're in fourth grade are, already 3 grade levels behind fourth graders in high-income communities, half of whom will not even graduate from high school, the half who do, who will have an 8th grade skill level. 1 out of 10 of our kids in low-income communities will actually graduate from college. So we've all come to this saying, this shouldn't exist. Like, we have to do something about this. And I think what has happened to us is that we've come to realize not only should we do something about it, we actually could do something about it. And really, we could attain a world where all the kids in our country have the chance to attain an excellent education. And I think what's led us to that initially was what we saw from initially a fraction of our core members who, going through their own learning curves, figured out how to actually put their kids on a different trajectory. So now, today, because we've learned so much from the initially small fraction of teachers who were affecting dramatic gains in their kids' achievement, we've learned a lot from them and have fed those lessons back into our training and support models, and have reached a point where now many more of our teachers are extremely successful with their kids. And so now we see evidence across any sort of community, from remote rural areas to our hardest pressed urban areas, at the elementary level, at the middle school level, at high school level. We see just hardcore evidence that when kids are given the opportunities they deserve, they excel. Kids facing some of the greatest challenges of poverty in our country. So seeing that at the classroom level, and now seeing through a number of our alums would teach very successfully and see their kids going off into nearby middle schools or whatever, and would see that those schools weren't giving the kids the opportunities really that they deserved to continue on the new trajectory. And that led a number of them to go out and pioneer these very high-performing charter schools, and there are many others in the country now as well who are, growing this generation of schools in low-income communities that are taking, whole schools full of kids in low-income communities and putting them on a track to graduating from college. And so now we see not only at a classroom level, but at whole school levels that it is completely possible to do this. And so, whereas, I think back to 15 years ago, I think the public evidence we had that it was possible to take kids growing up in urban and rural areas and actually put them truly on a level playing field was the movie Stand and Deliver. Remember? Jaime Escalante, the teacher in South Central Los Angeles, who took a class of kids and got them to pass the AP Calculus exam. I mean, incredibly inspiring story. But I think at some level, I think the movie served the purpose of making it seem like here was this one person who's just a hero, and many people concluded that it's something, that we couldn't figure out, like something magical or elusive about that teacher's impact. And I think, you could probably count on one hand, and even that is generous, the number of schools 15 years ago that were taking whole schools full of kids and putting them on a level playing field. And I just think, wow, how far we have come in 15 years, where, we ourselves, just within the context of Teach for America, and certainly there are many successful teachers outside of Teach for America, but we could point to hundreds of teachers who have affected just dramatic gains in their students' achievement levels, and we could explain exactly how they do that. We know today that there's nothing magical and nothing elusive about attaining real success with kids in low-income communities. It's about all the basics. There's no way around the very hard work of getting it done, but there's nothing elusive about it. And today there are thought to be 200 schools in low-income communities that are really accomplishing this at a whole school level. So the conversation today is completely different, whereas before we were trying to figure out, can this be done on any sort of scale? Today, we know this can be done. And the question is really just, okay, how do we affect the system level changes necessary to truly ensure that all kids have access to teachers and schools that will put them on a level playing field?